Hey guys, since starting this channel about 4 months ago, I've probably reviewed, 15, maybe 20 Arch-based Linux distributions. I've reviewed a ton of them. Strangely enough though, as much love as Antergos gets out there, I've only ever made one video review of Antergos. I reviewed Antergos, their Cinnamon edition, I think like the second video I ever made on this channel, and I've never revisited Antergos. So today I'm going to install Antergos. I'm going to install their GNOME edition because I also don't give the GNOME desktop environment that much attention on this channel either, because it's quite frankly one of my least favorite desktop environments. So today I'm going to be downloading the Antergos. I'm going to install the GNOME edition. I'm going to install this inside VirtualBox. So I've downloaded their live ISO. It's 1.9 gigabytes in size. Alright, I've booted up the ISO. I'm just going to let it go ahead and boot straight into the live environment. Actually, I don't think it's going to boot into the live environment on its own. I actually have to click on it in the boot menu. Yeah, I really feel bad that I haven't given Antergos a little more love on the channel, because I've really give Manjaro a lot of time on the channel. Made a lot of videos about Manjaro. Of course, you guys know I live in Manjaro now on my main machine. But Antergos is a very popular Linux distribution right now. They're like number 5 or 6 on DistroWatch. And Antergos is a little bit different than Manjaro in that it's really much more closer to what Arch is. They don't hold packages back like Manjaro does. And we booted into the live desktop environment. This is, of course, the GNOME desktop environment. And the Cinchi installer loads up right away. I didn't even have to click on anything. We have the option of try Antergos without making changes to your system. Basically, this closes the installer and we just play around in the live environment. Or we click install it and run through the installer. And that's what I'm going to do. Alright, English has been selected for my language. That's correct. So I go up here and hit the arrow keys on this installer just to get to the next slide. Alright, for best results, please ensure that this computer has 8 gigabytes available storage space. Good on that. I created a 15 gig drive on this virtual machine. We're plugged into a power source. Yes. Connected to the internet. Yes. Cinchi is up to date. Yes. There is no temporary packaging issues that would interfere with the installation. Not sure what they mean by that, but everything has a green check mark next to it. So, alright, country, territory, or area. It has chosen Australian English for me. That is not correct. We need US English right here. Click on that. It did choose the correct time zone for me, oddly enough. That's strange that it picked the central time zone in the US for me, which is correct, but it still wanted to do Australian English. Anyway, click Next. English US is the keyboard layout. That's correct. We have a test field down here that I could type in if I wanted to test it out. And we come to the most important part of the installer. What desktop environment do we want to install? We can install just the Antergos base system, no graphical desktop environment of any kind. We can do Cinnamon, Deepin, GNOME, KDE, Mate, OpenBox, or XFCE. Today, we're going to do GNOME. Alright, and then we have these options here. Add accessibility packages for people that are blind or visually impaired. No one with a disability is going to run this virtual machine, so I don't need to do that. Enable the Arch user repository, the AUR. I am going to enable that. Bluetooth support. I don't need that in a virtual machine. Chromium web browser. I'm going to turn that off. Firefox web browser. I'm going to turn that one on. Flash plugins we'll probably need. Do I want to run the LTS kernel? Yeah, I like sticking with the LTS kernels. They tend to be a little more reliable. LibreOffice. I'm not going to install the full LibreOffice suite in a virtual machine. It's just wasted space. I won't need those Office programs. SSH. I sometimes do use SSH in these virtual machines, so I will tick that on. Steam and Play on Linux. No, I don't need that. Uncomplicated firewall. I won't need a firewall either. So, I'm going to click Next here. Alright. we get a disclaimer about Arch user repository, the AUR. It's basically a warning saying it's, this is a community repo. There's some dangers using community repos like the AUR in Arch or the PPA system in Ubuntu. But personally, I've never had a problem with any of those. But you could, if somebody really wanted to put some malicious code out there and package it up and put it in the AUR, they could do that. All right, how would we like to proceed? Let Cinchi sort the mirror list, leave the mirror list as they are, let me manage the mirror list. I'm going to let Cinchi do whatever it does with the mirror list. I don't want to manually fool with it. All right, how would we like to proceed on the disk install? I'm going to erase the disk and install Antergos. Basically, just let Antergos have the entire 15 gig hard drive of this virtual machine. So if I wanted to do some partitioning, I could go down here and choose this option. But I'm just going to let Antergos set up the partitions automatically. Take the whole drive and just, if it wants to set up a swap or a separate home partition, who knows? I'm not exactly sure what Antergos is going to do with the partitions automatically, but we'll see. The first thing we got to do though, when I click next here, it's ranking the mirror list, so it's sorting the mirrors, trying to find the fastest mirrors for us. Alright, warning, this will overwrite everything currently on your drive. Basically, this is just a warning. It's about to format the drive right to the disk. If you had multiple drives, you would actually have a choice in this drop-down menu. There's only one virtual hard drive in this virtual machine, so it's already been chosen. So I'm just going to click next. Here is a little summary page about language, location, keyboard, time zone, desktop environment, extra plugins that we told it to install. We do have our partition scheme. It's going to create boot, root, and swap partitions. I'm going to click next. Are you really sure you want to continue? Basically, it's warning you. You're about to format the drive. There's no coming back after you click yes here. I'm going to click yes. And now we need to create a username and a password. We have the option of logging in automatically. I don't like doing that. Or we can require a password to log in. I like doing that for privacy reasons. I just always like to be forced to enter a password to actually log into my computer. We click save here. And the installer continues. The installer it'll probably run about 10 minutes or so. While this is running, I will talk a little bit about the stability on Antergos. I mentioned the second or third video I ever made on this channel was Antergos, their Cinnamon edition. And I kept that virtual machine till about a week ago. I had to delete it to make space for other virtual machines. But I kept Antergos Cinnamon on this as a virtual machine up to date. I even did some videos with it. Occasionally I would do like some app review videos. Some of those I did in Antergos Cinnamon. And it was ran fine for 4 months. I had an break it about a week ago where the virtual machine didn't boot up properly. It wasn't any major thing. It wasn't like a kernel panic or anything. It's something I probably could have fixed, but I chose not to because I'm so limited on drive space from all these virtual machines I install. I was actually kind of happy just to delete it, mainly so I could try out some other Antergos editions. So once I get Antergos GNOME installed, I'll probably, keep this virtual machine for, 2-3 months, check it for stability. But I've really had no problem with a lot of these Arch-based Linux distributions. A lot of people ask me about stability. Are they as stable as something like Debian or like LTS releases of something like Ubuntu or OpenSUSE, Leap? No. Antergos, Manjaro, and Swag, and all those Arch-based Linux distributions, they can never be stable like Debian because they're a rolling release. It's impossible. Common sense tells you the more packages that are being updated on your system, the more potential for breakage. But the little bit of breakage I've had in Manjaro on my main machine and things like Antergos and virtual machines have been minor. I've never had a situation where something came up that I couldn't fix. So, and you always have, the community the Arch community, the Manjaro community, the Antergos community. People are very friendly on the forums and in the IRC chat, so it's easy to get help. Alright, and the installer has completed. That took, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. Installation is complete. Do you want to restart your system now? Yes or no? You need to choose yes, and it will reboot your machine. That's what I'm going to do right now. And I've rebooted the machine, and this is our newly installed Antergos Linux. Just going to let it automatically boot up. Let's see how long boot up time takes. Wow. Looks like it's going to boot up very fast. Yeah, we got to the login manager very fast. 10 seconds or so. Log in. Alright, and this is the GNOME desktop. Now let's see what is installed by default on Antergos, the GNOME edition. I'm going to click Show Applications here. Looks like we have Add and Remove Software, so this should be our GUI package manager here. This, of course, is PAMAC. This is PAMAC 6.2.3, which is a GTK3 front end for libALPM. Your standard GUI package manager, though, you can search. You have a search field up here. You can search for packages by name if you know the name of the package you're searching for. If you're just browsing around, you can search by categories. So, for example, audio, video. Audio, video, we have a very large list of audio and video utilities and programs. And you could just pick one. Put a little checkbox by it, hit apply, and away it goes. It'll install it straight away for you. We have the Adobe Flash Player plugin installed. I chose to install that during the installation procedure. That was one of the things I ticked on during the install process. We have our Archive Manager. This is the standard Archive Manager in the GNOME desktop. We have Avahi. We have Books. The Books program, of course, is not going to do anything because I don't have any books on this system. We have Brasero. Brasero is the standard disk burning utility in the GNOME desktop environment. Pretty nice disk burning utility. I like it. If I'm running GNOME, I'll use Brasero. Given my choice, though, I usually install K3B as my disk burning utility of choice. Whether I'm running KDE or not, K3B is probably the best disk burning utility on Linux. But Brasero's decent enough. Of course, we have our calculator, our calendar, Cheese, which is a webcam program. We have CMake, Contacts. We have the dconfig editor, our disk usage analyzer, and the disk utility. We have our document viewer, which is for viewing PDFs. We have documents, GNOME documents. This is Documents 3.26.1, a document manager application. I have no documents for us to look at on this virtual machine. We have the Evolution email client. We have Files, which is, of course, our file manager. It's the Nautilus file manager, but GNOME now just calls it Files in the menus. They just label it as Files, but the name of the program actually is Nautilus. Firefox. We chose to install Firefox during the installation procedure. We had our choice of installing either Chromium, Firefox, or Vivaldi, I think. We had 3 different browser choices. We could have installed all 3 of them, actually. I could have ticked on to install all 3 of them. I just went with Firefox, though. Of course, this is Firefox Quantum. This is 58.0.2. Then we have our fonts utility. We have the HP device manager. We have HTOP. HTOP is a nice little system monitor. Basically, it's a terminal application. It runs in the terminal. But it's a interactive process viewer. It shows you all the processes running on your system. Also gives you information about CPU usage, memory usage. Speaking of which, CPU usage. Let it settle down here for a second, since I've been opening and closing a lot of stuff. CPU usage is pretty low. Between 1 and 3% it looks like. So that's actually not too bad. Pretty good for GNOME, actually. Memory. It's It's only using 813 megs of the 6 gigs of memory I gave it. That's actually not too bad for a GNOME distro. GNOME sometimes can be a little heavy on memory. Alright, running through the applications, we have our image viewer, we have light locker settings, we have logs, we have manage printing, we have the GNOME Maps utility, we have music. Let's open up music. Of course, I have no music to play, but this is GNOME Music 3.26.1, a music player and management application for GNOME. We have password and keys, photos, Polari. Polari is our IRC chat client. Always important to have at least some IRC chat client installed on any system, just in case you need support. Almost every Linux distro has a support channel on IRC, most of them in the Freenode network. And we have print settings, pulse audio volume control, we have some Qt stuff, Qt 5 settings, we have our screenshot utility, we have our settings manager, which I'll come back to. We have our software updater. Let's check that out. See what kind of updates we have. I've been told before that I don't do enough with the GUI package managers and GUI software updaters on my reviews because I tend to do everything in the terminal. So I like to try to remember to open these programs, at least take a look at them. Again, this is PAMAC. The system is up to date though. We have our sound recorder. We have system monitor. This is the GNOME system monitor, you know, your GUI system monitor. So you have your option of H-type, or you could just do GNOME system monitor here, which is a nice system monitoring program. One thing about the GNOME system monitor, though, it requires a little bit of CPU and memory to run, so it kind of skews the numbers. If you really want an accurate reading of your system, H-type is probably the better way to go. We have, of course, the GNOME Terminal is our terminal. While I've got the terminal open, uname space -r. We're running kernel 4.15.3, so very recent kernel 4.15.3. So 4.15, this should, of course, already be patched for Spectre and Meltdown and all that stuff. You know, all that stuff's been patched for a while. I don't know if 4.15 is one of the kernels that's supposed to start supporting VirtualBox guest editions out of the box, you know, have that already baked into the kernel. I think that was supposed to start in either 4.15 or 4.16, I forget which. Either way, though, the VirtualBox guest editions just work in Antergos. I had to do nothing to get the VirtualBox guest editions installed, which is great. Of course, we have our text editor in GNOME. This will be the gedit program. Gedit is a great little text editor. One problem I hate about gedit, though, and why I don't like running it, unless I'm running GNOME, is the only time I install gedit. It loves to save backup files. I mean, it puts backup files all over your system. It leaves a lot of crud, you know, all over your home partition. So we have the transmission BitTorrent client. This is your standard BitTorrent client here in the GNOME desktop environment. We have the GNOME tweak tool. And from here is where you could play around with the appearance, settings, desktop, extensions, fonts, keyboard and mouse, and startup applications. And finishing off, the applications installed by default, we have GNOME's video utility, and we have their weather app. So let me go back to the GNOME tweak tool. Well, before I play around with the tweak tool, let me just minimize this. I'm going to right click on the desktop. I'm going to go to change background. Let's see what kind of wallpapers we have as an option. So we have the option of changing our desktop background or changing the background to the lock screen. I'm going to choose background here. See what kind of wallpapers we have to choose from here. And I'll just cycle through some of these. That's a pretty cool one. The white background is good for dark themes. I really like that black and white photo. That's probably one I would go with. We have some really beautiful nature scenes to choose from in the wallpaper as well. That's a really great photo there. Well, here's another kind of black and white. Got some color to it, but nice old-timey kind of photograph. And of course, no wallpaper collection would be complete without some nature photographs, particular flowers. I'm just going to go with the second one that I really liked. Let's go back to the tweak tool. Appearance. Let's see. We have our global dark theme. Animations are turned on. Themes. Our application theme is Numix Frost Light. Let's see what else we have. We have the Adwaita and the Adwaita Dark themes. So I actually opened up the file manager here to show off some of the theming. So this is Numix Frost Light. This is the default one. We have the Adwaita theme. Not bad. The default GNOME theme, Adwaita. It's not horrible. I really like the Adwaita Dark theme, though. It's really a great dark theme. One of the best dark themes we have on Linux. And that is basically it. We have the high contrast theme, but you don't really want to run those unless you have some reason, some visual need for high contrast. I'm just going to go with, you know what, I'm going to go with Adwaita Dark. For icons, Numix Square has been chosen for us by default. We also have Numix, Numix Light, Numix Square Light. I'm just going to go back to Numix Square, which was the default. For the shell theme, only one shell theme is installed, Numix Frost, so we can't change that. Going back to the tweak tool, desktop. We have the options of showing icons on the desktop. It's turned off. I'm fine with that. I really don't use icons on the desktop, but I know a lot of people do, so that is an option for you. Extensions. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of extensions installed on Antergos GNOME. Dash to dock, of course, is installed. I like the dash to dock feature. Let's edit the dash to dock over here. For one thing, I do not like these enormous icons. 48 pixels, that is pretty big. 32 would be quite a bit better. Yeah, I can live with that. So the dock size limit set to 90%. I'm fine with that. We could do panel mode and just have it extend 100% of the length. Very similar to Unity, but I don't need it to be 100%. We have the option of doing intelligent auto hide. It's turned on by default. I'm fine with that. We could also position the dash to dock on the left, right, top, or bottom of the screen. So if you wanted to put it on the bottom, you could. But honestly, it makes sense to have these docks on the left side of the screen. So much happens on the left side of the screen. For those of you in Western countries, you read from left to right. Most everything originates on your computer on the left side of the screen. Your start menus are usually, on the left, like your activities menu here in GNOME, or your dash in Unity, or even your standard start menus in Windows. All that's on the left side of the screen. So it makes sense to have your dash and any launchers on the left side of the screen, so you're not traveling from the right side of the screen with the mouse to the left side of the screen with the mouse back to the right. It's better on your wrists. I'm going to right click on the desktop again. This time I'm going to choose settings. This is your standard settings manager, where you can play around with the settings for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, background notifications, region and language, universal access, online accounts, privacy sharing, yada yada yada. Your network stuff's also in here. So what do I think about Antergos GNOME? I think it's fine. I like the way they set this up. For one thing, it has a full suite of programs, but it's not kitchen sink full, It is got just enough stuff to get some work done, but they didn't really put a ton of stuff on the ISO. So still kind of a light GNOME distro, For example, there was no LibreOffice or anything like that. They didn't install, GIMP wasn't already installed. So you're going to need to install some stuff, but they had enough programs to get by, I could get some work done out of the box with the way it's set up. The other thing I really liked is the extensions they used in GNOME. They only had about 3 extensions installed by default. So it's still very much base GNOME, vanilla GNOME, but like the dash to dock extension, I think 99% of the people that run GNOME end up installing and enabling that particular extension. So I'm glad they made the decision to go ahead and have that enabled out of the box. And of course, Antergos is Arch based. It is 100% compatible with Arch. Arch repos, the Arch user repository, all of that stuff squared away. So if you love Arch, you're going to love Antergos. The installer is probably one of the more interesting things about Antergos, that Cinchi installer that basically, other than the fact that it has a live environment, the live GNOME desktop environment, but when you run the installer, it lets you choose between something like 7 or 8 different desktop environments and window managers. So we could have installed Mate, Cinnamon, KDE, XFCE. I think OpenBox was an option, and I think Deepin was another option. And you do that from the installer. So there's not like a separate ISO to download for the Deepin edition of Antergos or the XFCE edition of Antergos. I love that they include that as an option in the installer. You just choose whatever desktop environment you want to run from the install. Or no desktop environment. That was also an option. We could have chosen just to install a base Antergos system and then install whatever we want down the road, assuming we wanted a graphical environment. That would make a great base for something like i3 or Xmonad or any of those tiling window managers. So, matter of fact, that might be a future video. I do like a base install of Antergos and install, one of these minimal tiling window managers maybe on it. Anyway, Antergos GNOME. Check it out, guys. Peace.